guests, I am very honored and thrilled to be giving you all the history of the library straight from someone who was not even alive when the library opened. So, with that said, in the beginning, there was this place right here, the Alice Appleby DeVoe Memorial Library, opened in 1945 as the township's first library. It was a gift from Fred DeVoe in tribute to his late mother, who grew up in that house. At one time, the library housed about 13,000 volumes, and it would eventually become a branch for the public library in 1966, up until its inevitable closure in 1981. And while this library was nice, quiet, and quaint and convenient for those who did not feel like traveling all the way to New Brunswick, it still did not feel like enough for residents who really wanted a true municipal library. So in 1957, members of the East Brunswick Kiwanis Club gathered for a meeting to discuss the idea of establishing a municipal library in this township. And with that meeting led to the formation of the East Brunswick Library Association in 1960, led by this gentleman, James E. Hess, a man who was very instrumental in getting the library established in our township. When the referendum to establish the library was put up on the ballot in 1961, much campaigning was done, from standing outside shopping centers to booths at the Middlesex County Fair. They were determined to get the referendum to go through, and it failed. And so they tried it again the following year in 1962, and that too failed. So what went wrong exactly? Well, some argued that the committee was not very clear as to how they were going to establish a municipal library in our township, whom they felt its population at the time was not big enough to sustain a municipal library at the time. So, after much studying and analyzing over the next few years, they were finally ready to put the referendum up on the ballot again in 1965, and even produced a tape slideshow presentation called Library Story to explain their efforts to residents, and miraculously, it passed, but by a very slim margin. So on August 18th, 1966, groundbreaking for the new library took place. On May 1st, 1967, the East Brunswick Public Library officially opened to the public. Originally housed in the basement of the municipal building, on its first day, they shelved about 10,000 volumes, and 516 people became members that first day, and within a little over a week, more than 1,600 library cards were issued to residents, a sign that the library was going to be a great success in our township. But they knew that they weren't going to be in the basement of a municipal building forever, so in October of 1971, a citizens committee was formed to study the idea of possibly making a separate building for the library. And by February of 1972, they concluded that at least 30,000 square feet would be needed to construct such a library. So after many board approvals and other legal mumbo-jumbo, groundbreaking for the new public library building officially took place on December 1st, 1974, on a rather cold and rainy day, which is why it didn't have such a high attendance. But this new building was not only a grand vision for the library, but also one for its mayor at the time, Jean Walling, who unfortunately did not live to see the new library be completed. On her behalf, she requested that instead of receiving flowers, that people make contributions to the new library building. there you can see where the new library would be, and note how at that time Riders Lane used to cut through what is now the path behind the municipal pond. So on April 11th, 1976, the new East Brunswick Public Library building officially opened to the public, and with that, it received the area library designation by the state, much to the disappointment of New Brunswick. And not only that, but they were the first library in the entire state of New Jersey to be computerized, which, as you can imagine, in 1976 was a pretty big deal. This new library building contained a very large reference section that basically became the reference library for all of New Jersey. It also has a very large children's section that is roughly the size of the original library space. And along with books and media, you are also able to rent toys, games, puppets, and art. Now the first library director, William Shore, once said that they have no intention of becoming the usual library, and he was certainly right on that. From the very beginning, the library was on the cusp of breaking and cutting-edge technology. In 1977, they acquired its first public access computer. In 1983, they acquired the Kurzweil reading machine for the visually impaired, and the year after that, they acquired computers and software for public use, courtesy of the Friends of the Library, also very instrumental in the library's success, I should mention. And in 1989, they introduced the InfoTrack service, which was basically an online database of magazine and newspaper articles. Sort of like a pre-Google Wikipedia type tool. Now, moving towards the 21st century, they ended the card catalog system in 1992, and in 2000 they launched its website, and in 2006 they completely tore up the reference section. Sad react. But in its place came a teen center, more computer labs and study rooms, basically helping bring our library forward in the 21st century, as is needed in these times. And in 2011, the Business Resource Center opened up, which gives people an opportunity to hopefully set their careers forward. And more recently, the Makers Space opened up, which will basically keep our library moving forward in the 21st century, even as media and visual. Oh, thank you, Tracy. Always good to have a drink while you're speaking. So overall, the library is a great success for our township. They continually advance and move forward in this century that to you probably seemed like, to many of you seems like yesterday we just started, but the library is determined to keep itself moving forward with new and cutting-edge technology, and of course, it is always changing. I mean, if you've looked outside, you'll see the incredible designs for what will hopefully be the future of the library. Even as media consumption has changed over the years, books will always have a special place in our library for years to come. I mean, a few years ago, we thought Nooks and ebooks would be the wave of the future, but you don't really see too many of those these days, because there's really nothing like reading an actual physical book. And they don't run on any batteries. So thank you everyone for allowing me to speak about its history, and I hope you all enjoy the night.
You're good?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Woo! Go have a drink. Or have a glass of wine. Isn't that great? Did you learn something? Yeah. Thank you, Ethan.